Hi kids, it's Bunny again with another junk journal, and this one I call Bloom 2, and it is hardback, made from chipboard, cover made from chipboard, covered with a pretty floral fabric. Let me pull out just a little bit. And has a pretty picture of a lady and some fringe and a sort of rose gold sash holding it together, which comes off out of the way. And looking inside, we have some pretty sari fabric with sequins on it, very blingy, with a journaling card. All journaling cards are blank on the back, so you can journal on them. And a big tag. Tags are blank on the back, so you can journal on them. And this is a small envelope in which we have a vintage photograph, someone with the car of the day, and there's also a feather dipped in gold and a little note about this journal for the person who buys the journal, so they'll know a little bit about what junk journals are for. And the graphics on the tags and on some of the pages are from Amity Bloom on Etsy, and she does really pretty work. That's Amity Bloom over here too. Over in this first pocket or tuck is a journaling card and a tag and a piece of vintage ephemera, some sort of table of grades of some sort, and have a little flower charm hanging there. I have lace on the edges of many of the pages. And moving on, we have some pretty glittery paper. This is vintage book page. And this is some coffee dyed ledger paper and coffee dyed doily. And in this pocket we have a journaling card, pretty girl. And this is a vintage postcard, A Miner's Dream of Home. Someone imagining milk and cookies at home. And we have little clusters and other details throughout. There's some vintage music sheet. More pretty Amity Bloom graphics. Here's coffee dyed vellum paper. This is from Edith Holden book. And this is a large side pocket, and inside of which I have a mini journal with miniature ephemera and little pages you can jot notes down on. More Edith Holden. More Amity Bloom graphics. Here's a fabric, excuse me, what do you call that? Anyway, it's fabric. And in this pocket is another journaling card. Here's a tag, and on the back of it is a little lace pocket with a little small journaling card and a little word, vintage word thing, and I can't think of the words today. Here's the itty bitty envelope. It's got some little pretty things in it. More vintage book page. Here's another journaling card. This is some vintage ephemera. I'm not sure exactly if it's some sort of cards. There's a whole bunch of them with different images on them. I'm not sure. They're not tarot. They're something else. I don't know what. And here's a vintage Dewey Decimal library card. And this tuck is a pretty journaling card and another tag. And here's a itty bitty teeny tiny little charm. Oops. Little teeny tiny butterfly charm. Just itty bitty. Oops. Vintage book page. Here's a little glassine envelope. In it is a vintage photograph of a gentleman sitting excuse me, in a rotunda, and here's a vintage little quote about the Good Samaritan. More coffee dyed vellum paper. This is one of my favorite images. Here's a vintage flashcard. There's another little tiny envelope, and inside of it is a sticker and some other little things. This is a coffee dyed square, big square doily, which I've turned into a pocket with a journaling card in it. And vintage book page. More amity blue. More of the square doily with a journaling card in it. And this tuck is another tag with a pocket on the back with a small journaling card and another little word card. And it's a glassine envelope, and in it is a vintage calling card, and it's called a hidden calling card because this flips up and reveals the name, and it flips down and hides it. And over here I have a covered paper clip which is holding a vintage photograph. And in this glassine pocket is another vintage photograph, group of ladies. Here is a cute little sewn envelope, which has inside of it some vintage stamps and another pretty Amity Bloom tag. Over here we have a piece of beautiful Indian sari fabric. Beautiful shade of blue. My little book propper upper is not propping my book up properly. It's not propping properly. Anyway, here we go. And this tuck, another journaling card, another tag. This one also has a pocket on the back. And there's a little vintage photograph of a couple of cute little kids. Coffee dyed ledger paper. And in this side pocket is a vintage letter from 1929. And there's a letter inside that you can read. More vellum, sheet music, more Edith Holden graphics. And here's another large side pocket in which is another miniature journal with miniature ephemera. And you can keep notes on. Here's another little charm which just fell off. I'll have to fix that. I will fix that. Here's some more pretty Indian sari fabric. A good chunk of it. Journaling card. And tag. And this is another vintage postcard. Easter greetings. It's, see if there's a date on it. I can't see it because of the stamp. It might be 1910, I'm not sure. There's another covered paper clip with a photograph, vintage photograph. Happy little family. Some interesting paper, vintage book page. And here is a coin envelope which has a vintage button and a sticker and a little saying inside. And this is a vintage vintage recipe. In this belly band we have, it's not vintage, but it's a little menu. And this is a vintage letter, another vintage letter from 1899. State School of Mines in Golden, Colorado. Here's another vintage photograph. Someone probably displaying their new car. Another tag with a pocket on the back. And here's a vintage ticket. 1953, looks like. Here I took some texture paste and painted it gold. And that's a vintage French liquor label. And in this bag, there's a vintage playing card, and I just altered it a bit. Some pictures. And here's another journaling card. Very pretty. A little bead detail. And here's another belly band with another one of those round card things that I'm not sure what it is. Cups. That sounds familiar. Here's a vintage prescription. Might be 1927. And here's just a vintage envelope with some vintage stamps, nothing inside. And this is just a pretty card, not vintage or anything. It's just an interesting card I had. A journaling card, and a tag, and another vintage photograph. The boardwalk. There's a little key charm. And in this glassine bag are some vintage button card and a little tiny vintage photograph of a fellow sitting in his car. And journaling card, a tag, and another mini envelope. And let's see what's inside of it. Looks like a little man and little flowers, some little cute little thingies. Book page, just interesting paper, and that's the back cover. It's two journaling cards. One of them has my stamp on it, and another tag. And that's the journal. That's the Bloom 2 journal. It's just a coincidence that it has Amity Bloom graphics in it. I was going to name it Bloom anyway. But anyway, come visit my shop, Treasure Journals, on Etsy, and you can find out more about it. And thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.